everyone. Welcome to this webinar on female entrepreneurship in EdTech. Very happy to have you here. Thank you, Diana, Larissa, and Christine for joining. Maybe we can start with a small round of introductions. Maybe, Diana, you can start.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Diana. I'm from Hamburg in Germany, and I'm the co-founder of Fobizz, and Fobizz is Germany's largest teacher training platform. So we have teachers who are already doing great digital teaching and have great ideas, and they can share their knowledge in form of online courses with other teachers, and we provide the technology that they can do so. Yeah, that's about me. So maybe over to Marie-Christine.
Thanks for inviting me and happy to be here. I'm Marie-Christine. I'm the co-founder of EduCapital. EduCapital is the leading European impact EdTech fund. So we invest in EdTech all over Europe, from pre-K-12 up to lifelong learning and corporate learning. And we are one of the only rare funds, managed by two women.
Thank you. Larissa?
Thank you for having me. My name is Larissa Akrofi, and I'm the founder of Levet in Heels. It's an online platform and community I created to bring visibility to African women in STEM, mainly because of my background in STEM and the challenges that I faced and, finding role models in this space. And so now I'm doing this for the younger generation, and I look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
All right, it's fantastic, to have representatives from the founder part, and Larissa, you're like girls in STEM focused, and then Marie-Christine, who has the investor background. And on my side, I'm the co-founder and the chair of the European EdTech Alliance. It's an alliance of 26 different organizations in 19 different countries in Europe, and we represent 2,500 startups in Europe. And so, yeah, super happy to be here today and to start, the discussion, the conversation with you all. I just, want to have a quick round to just have you explaining the challenges that you're facing and in what you see in female founders in the space. What are the main challenges that they have? Maybe Diana, you can start, and maybe Marie-Christine, you can share a bit more about you funding also female founders, and how do you find them, and like what's your strategy to be more aligned with that and find the right founders to fund. So maybe we can start with Diana sharing her founder experience, and then Marie-Christine can share a bit more about her strategy.
Okay, sure. So about female founders, I think we all know that there are too few female founders in EdTech and in all other areas. And so one reason is probably a lack of role models. When I was younger, I never had a role model of a person who was a founder, a female CEO. Born and raised in Germany, it was rather traditional and still is in many places. So I think one really important topic is to show role models who are also like successful female entrepreneurs in EdTech or in other areas. And so this is one thing. And also probably that the topics of entrepreneurship, that they are more present in school and all the mindset that comes with it, to be less risk averse, to be like to try things out, to not be afraid to fail. And so most school systems probably do not prepare you for this. Instead, they guide you into this, like you go to college, university, and then you do your job. But oftentimes it's not so easy to then just try and try it out and not be afraid to fail. And therefore, I think programs like you do, Svenia, to support female founders, in this case in EdTech, they are so important to bring female founders together, to have this network, to share experiences, ideas, maybe if you're afraid to talk about it. And I think there are many things that come together in order to support female founders.
Thank you, Diana. Yeah, Diana is part of the program that I started with the European Tech Alliance and Supercharger Ventures called the Female EdTech Fellowship. It's a 6-month fellowship for female founders. And so we gather 15 or so founders every 6 months, and they meet every month. They have like a full weekend together where they can connect and interact. And I really see like the difference before and after. Like after they really found, you know, a networking, a safe space to exchange and to share, you know, their issues, their challenges, and they realize that they have the same challenges and they help each other. So it's really amazing. So edtechfellowship.eu, and if you want to know more about it. So yeah, thanks for the shout out, Diana. Now to Marie-Christine. So what's your stake on that? Because you're the investor in the room. So you also have some sort of, you know, responsibility as well to maybe look harder for female founders, because obviously there's not a lot of them and there are a minority, but how do you as an investor look for them?
So basically, we have done our best, you know, to promote and help, you know, female founders, because we have 40% of all the startups that we have funded that are funded or co-funded by women. So we have right now, you know, 28 startups in our portfolio, and 40%, you know, are funded or co-funded by women, which is far over, you know, the market average, because less than 10% of startups that receive funds from VC are funded or co-funded for women. It's a statistics, but this is the statistics. But, you know, we have the same problem, because we don't receive enough deal flow, handed by women. You know, we only have 18% of our deal flow, which are companies funded or co-funded by women. And we go back to the problems that Diana mentioned. It's the lack of role model. We don't have enough women, you know, entrepreneur in the edtech field, and this is a paradox, because, you know, I think that more than 80% of the teachers, or in K-12 or even in higher ed, we have a big proportion of female, teachers and female professors, and, you know, the products they will use are conceived by men. So that's the big problem. I think, education is key. We don't have enough women, going into tech, into science, studies. And basically, in EdTech, you have tech, and, tech frightens women. Even if in EdTech, you need a lot of marketing women, you need a lot of women that will design very nice and friendly products. But the tech area, frightens women. So we need more women in the science, studies. And it's quite interesting to see that in the US, they've done a study showing that the girls that were looking at the series X-Files, with Dana Scully, 50% of them have more chance to do a career in STEM. So that means that when you have role model, whatever they are, in TV, at schools, you are entitled to do that. So we need more women doing science. And then we need more women, to do entrepreneurship. And for that, you need trainings like the one you do, Svenia, a lot of peer-to-peer learning and peer-to-peer gathering between women. And you need a role model, to show a woman that it's possible. So it's a long way, a long process, and it starts, I think, from the school.
Indeed. And that's where Larissa comes in, because Larissa, you are an advocate for STEM in schools and STEM for girls. So in your opinion, I guess that we need to start as early as possible educating girls on the STEM topics. Tell us more about what you think about that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll start with the way my career started. I started out as an aspiring woman in STEM, having pursued a degree in biomedical engineering in Ghana. And at the time, one of the challenges that I faced in this male-dominated field of engineering was that I had very few female role models to look up to, something that we are all talking about here. And I was one of just 4 girls in our class of about 40. So you can imagine how intimidating that was for me. And adding to this was the fact that there were very few female lecturers in the field who I could identify with for support that I needed. And so in an attempt to figure out what other women in STEM were up to professionally And to also keep myself motivated and inspired, I launched what is called, well, now called Levet in Heels, which is an online platform and community to bring visibility to African women in STEM. And this really started with me just interviewing African women in STEM, making strides in their communities and just publishing their stories. And I noticed that this started gaining some traction and inspiring other young girls. And so, since then, Levet in Heels has grown its audience reach. But one thing that's really dear to my heart is relatable female role models. The lack of relatable female role models is really a huge challenge where I'm from, because I say relatable because it's very difficult to become something if you can't see it or envision it. But it's even harder if you can't relate to it or relate to something, because we all come from different backgrounds and societies and cultures. And so this is something that I'm committed to changing by making African women in STEM more visible as role models to inspire our young girls and young women to improve their confidence and their abilities and their aspirations in STEM as a whole.
Thank you. And I think, Larissa, you're a role model for these girls as well. And Diana is also a woman in tech, right? Diana, you've been studying a lot of STEM subjects, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. I have a background in computer science, actually. So I'm one of the STEM women. And what I'm also very proud of, our tech team consists of 5 people, and we have 4 female engineers. So
that's so rare. I don't know how you made that happen. It's crazy.
I think it happens if you do have strong women in the team. They attract other women, and which is really great. And they also attract really great men who think it's great to work with women in teams and in diverse teams. So so this is really great. And one thing Larissa said, I think it's so important that we need to have relatable female role models, that we don't only have, the role models, they're so way up and they're not reachable and they're like the perfect and everything always works well, but also show that the path you're on is really hard. It's not, you always see the successes, like where you stand after a few years, but it's always hard for everyone, and to share the experiences and just, don't only show the successes all the time, but also talk about the path you're on, and so you're a lot more relatable to others and not unreachable. I think that's really important.
Yeah, fully agree. And I think, there's something also to be said about the difference in how female founders show their work and get themselves out there. It's very different from what male founders would do, and I strongly feel the difference because, in our fellowship, these female founders are super brilliant, but they're super scared also to share about their work because they don't want to brag. And then you have, men who are they're more at ease with the exercise, which is not bragging. It's just sharing about your work, showing what you do to the world, be present, be visible out there. And so there's also maybe something about personalities or characters and character types. I don't know if you've come across that or if you agree with that. Can we say that there's a difference?
I totally agree with that. If I look at men and women, the way they present projects, we receive more than 1,500 projects a year, and for the same project, a woman will let's take an example. The woman that makes €1 million revenues, she will tell you, okay, I need to raise 1 million next year. I will be doing 2 million. And the same guy for the same project, we say I want to raise 10 million, and next year I will do 10 million. And that at the end, he will do 2 million like the woman. But he dares to ask for much more. So there's and I think it's the same in when you manage men and women. The first thing the guy will ask you is about his raise, and the woman will say I haven't done enough. I need to do more, etc. So it's a question of self-confidence, and daring to ask for more, daring to manage, and often women are more realistic. they're more down to earth and they're more realistic. And at the end, I think they're right. So that's why I think that it's important that in our world of investment, you have mixed investment teams so that people don't have bias, and they don't get, biased by the man who has for the most money. So that's why, there's been a big initiative in France to have, more women in investment fund, because this changed the way people judge projects and are not that biased by.
Sure, because I mean, I think less than 5% of total AUM, assets under management in Europe, are managed by women. So there's also a question of, if you only have men investing, they're gonna maybe invest in people that are like them, that they will see, and they will maybe less keen on looking further for women founders. So there's also an investment question here, and who is managing these funds. And so it's a topic that you really know about, Marie-Christine. So it's very rare, a fund managed by two women. So we need more of that, for sure. We had a question in the feed from Julia from EdTech Austria, and she's just asking, what can an ecosystem network do to bridge the gender gap in EdTech? So I guess she's talking about her own organization, which is like a trade association, an industry association representing EdTech. So I don't know, Diana, for example, if you were part of such an organization, what would you expect from them to help you grow in your journey?
Yeah, I think that's what we talked about earlier. Again, it's about role models, it's about visibility, it's about networks, bringing together people to have diverse panels, to showcase successful stories. I think that's all really, really important. And maybe also, if I can add one more thing to the question before about like trying or not feeling comfortable presenting yourself, like on LinkedIn or wherever. I think, I don't know if it's only a female thing, but for me, it always felt really hard. And then we had a press agency and we paid a lot of money. And then they said, okay, you need to do this, you're paying money, so we bring you into press, and now you need to post it. And I felt like, oh, okay, on the one hand, we want it, on the other hand, it feels sometimes a little bit hard, but that's maybe a tip. So if you pay money for it, and if you have someone externally who pushes you, it doesn't feel that bad.
Yeah, like an advisor. And I think it's so important to have these PR. There are PR agencies focused also on women to help, specifically women, because they have this challenge. But I strongly agree with that. And I think, it's so important to show your work. If you don't show your work, if you don't talk about your work out there, nobody's going to know the amazing stuff that you're doing. So really be there, be present, post about the great things that you're achieving with your team. I mean, that's something that is really important, because people out there will like it, comment it, and you will be more visible to, the many. So it's definitely a good advice, for sure.
And you're also doing it for other female founders or potential female founders who might see you and think, okay, if she made it, I can try too. So
Exactly. So maybe a question for Larissa, like, how do you make sure that you inspire other women or girls? Like, how do you put yourself out there? What's your strategy, basically?
So I want to go back to the point that Diana was trying to make about, the ecosystem, trying to support women in tech. I think the challenges that women in tech face are omnipresent, and they can't all be solved in a month to celebrate women in tech. We have all these special days for women in tech, women in science, and that kind of thing. And all these challenges cannot be solved in those days. And so we have a lot of work to do in creating time and space to celebrate these things are important, but I feel like it should be a continuous process where we involve key players to come in to understand how they can play a part to support women in these fields. So we're talking about, companies, industries, how can they create policies that will favor women in working environments or female entrepreneurs, because a lot of the policies that are developed are suited for men. And so it becomes challenging to cater to women in these fields. So that's one challenge that I wanted to put across, that I felt the ecosystem can do a better job at working at. And another thing is we all come from diverse fields. So the challenges that I face might be very different from the challenges that you face. And so we should learn to stop lumping people in one group or one category when we are talking about, women in tech. I feel like it's very good that we have platforms like this to share, the challenges and solutions that every one of us are doing in our various countries or our various continents. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with regards to that.
Very good point. Very good point. And I also wonder, shouldn't we also include men in these conversations? Because men can also be allies. And I was on a panel last week at EdTech Next in Germany. And there was a panel where, women founders, and I was moderating it, and then they put a man in the middle of the panel. And, it was super interesting to also get the point of view of men and how they want to get more involved and become allies. And I don't think it's just a woman thing. It's like a diversity thing. We know that, all women founder teams do not perform as well as mixed teams. Like all men teams do not perform as well as mixed teams. So we really need diversity. It's not just about women, it's about diversity. So do you have something to share about that?
I feel like a lot of people also work in isolation, and like you're saying, involving male counterparts can go a long way to help and support the whole agenda of EdTech that we are talking about. So encouraging, men to work with women, share ideas, because to be honest with you, men have been doing it for a very long time. So there's an opportunity to learn from them and do better than them. So let's encourage, conversations around collaboration, not just with men, but, key players, the government, industries, bringing all key players together to provide an enabling environment for all of us to thrive in.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that diversity is not only men and women, in the EdTech. It's also social origin of founders. We have a very, very similar type of founders. Male, out of the same social class, of the same school, the same experience after school, and also about age. After there are not that many EdTech founders. After 40 or 45 years old. So it's a question of having a tech much more inclusive in terms of diversity for men, women, but also social origin, and also age. We need to have a more diverse team. This is how you build good products.
Yes. So I really believe that there is a huge topic around diversity, and we do not talk enough about the other subjects, in my opinion. Sometimes we focus the conversation too much on men, women, but as you say rightly, Marie-Christine, of course, we want to include also people of color. We want to include people from different social origins, other age groups as well. So I think it's so important. And again, research shows that businesses that are diverse in all the senses of the term are more efficient. And so, yeah, we strongly need to work on that particular aspect as well. So, yeah. So we have another question from the audience. About this time, about in larger organizations, how HR and talent leaders focus on, by way of leadership development to bridge the gender gap. So how can we, in our organizations, may they be small or big, through leadership, bridge the gender gap? And she's asking if there are particular themes to address when you are an HR or talent leader. So what's your point of view on that?
I use EdTech. There are a lot of platforms, of e-learning that, create content about soft skills learning, diversity learning. It's a good way to to diffuse and this content. It's a lot of mobile platform, micro learning. It's easy to use, easy to be trained. It can be done on the way to work, to go to the work, etc. So there's a lot of innovation in edtech companies about these subjects.
True, like how to train your staff in these topics, right? That's a very good point. But how can you also bridge the gender gap and make sure there's no glass ceiling? Like as an HR leader, what can you do? What can you put in place to get more women to the top?
So in France, we have had good initiatives about that, which was like it was a law. We had to have a law to do that, but it was to have 40% of women in boards. It's really a law that went in front of the deputy to get like that. All the board members of quoted companies, should have 40% of women. So that's the way, we had to do it by the law in order to enforce the movement. But then, you need to be sure as HR leaders that you promote women, that you are able to have, diversity in the comics. And I think that, as you say, great woman attracts great other women. And if you have been able to promote women, in comics and give them responsibility, this will also, suppress this very tough, selling wall.
Diana?
I can also share experience I had with a company. It's a large consulting company, and they wanted to hire more female engineers, and they set themselves quotas, and they said, okay, we need to hire a female engineer first before we can hire the next male engineer. Like going back to female male, there's more to diversity, I know. But it was really hard, and I knew the HR manager who was in charge of it. And, she did a really good job, and she actually found the great women who were able to do the job. And I think once you hit the critical amount of, let's say, about 25 or maybe 30%, it seems like a lot easier to get more women in. Because, if I can decide to go to a company with 10% women or 30% women, and I like them both equally, I would probably go to the more the company who has more women, because I probably feel a little bit more among others, And so I think what they did was really great. And it was hard 10 years ago when they started, but now they are on a really good track.
Yeah, they really committed to the best effort, but they really put the work, in finding these women. Yes, it's harder. Of course, it's harder when you receive 100 CVs from men and 2 CVs from women. Yes, it's harder. But at least you put the effort and, try to cater for more diversity.
Yeah, and a lot of groups have set up, a woman group, in their company to whom they provide specific, leadership training, and all these women, it's high potential women, gather and help them each other. So but this has to come from the top management. This has to be an initiative, supported by top management and the CEO. Otherwise, it does not work.
Fully agree. And Diana, in Germany, you also have the quotas now, right? You have to have 40%.
Yes. Like they are there for the boards, and they're now coming for C-level too.
Okay, that's that's a good step forward. But indeed, it has to go through this way first. You have to have policies, like Larissa said, policies that enforce more women at the management level. That's a step towards more diversity, men, women diversity, even if there are other types of diversity again. So yeah, do you want to share another key topic in your opinion to make things go forward? Other ideas?
Yeah, I think in addition to what we're talking about to get HR to help the situation, I think it really starts from education and raising awareness from the very beginning. Where I am from, it's very difficult to get families, especially in rural areas, to send their girl children to school. they prefer sending the boys to school so that the girls will stay at home to, do the chores and take care of the household. And so it has to start with educating and raising awareness with, communities and families to get them to understand that involving girls to have an education is really important to development. And it goes a long way to, developing not just the country, but the world at large. Now, going back to HR, I think we all talk about pay inequity. We know that the gender imbalance in this sector is reflected in the wages paid to, tech workers, with women earning less than their male counterparts. And so HR departments really need to monitor this and take corrective action to this regard. Another thing that they can do is to give recognition to women at the top. And so one of the things that I've realized is that when women climb up the ladder to get to the top, they hardly ever get recognized. And we have very few women taking up, leadership positions at board level. And so we need to encourage a lot more women in these spaces to serve, and it goes back to role models, to serve as role models for, young women to be inspired to even want to take on leadership positions. So I feel like these two areas are what, HR departments can focus on to try to support women in tech, not just women in tech, but in all sectors.
And what Larissa said, it's so important to start early, and also to don't only think short term, but think long term. If you like as a large company and you have a CSR department, like you need to not only think about the students who are potential employees really soon, I mean the college students, but also the high school students or the elementary school students who will be there in many years later, but it's so important to think long term, I think.
Fully agree on that, for sure. Yeah.
And that's why I think it's a real an education problems. It really starts at schools. You need to have role models. At schools, that having a human woman testify, and give testimonies about being an entrepreneur, creating a company. It's like really the role model starts very, very early, and it's a bit a pity because it has right now tech is becoming in every industry, and the more the tech comes to the power, to the more woman gets out of it, because we have less women taking science engineer now than it was 20 years ago, and the whole society is getting more and more digital. So we really need to have big consciousness of all our Ministry of Education all over the world, that it starts very, very early. It's at 16, 18 it's often too late, because
it's like a language. It's like learning a new language, right? I mean, the earlier you start, the better. It's a bit like the same with this mindset of, getting into a STEM career, for sure. So as early as possible. Yeah, definitely. So no, I strongly believe that's one of the biggest point, and to also like have a different perspective on careers, and also how do you teach a whole generation about the careers of the future. So there was one OECD study that showed that, for example, French students dream of careers that will not exist when they will graduate high school. So a lot of careers will disappear, others will appear. And we also need to teach these careers of the future, which are mainly around data, around technology, not only, but, mainly. And so it's also important for the school system, the whole school system, to rethink itself and share the careers of tomorrow with these students. Because a lot of jobs are disappearing, and the school system is just continuing as it is. So there is a big issue there.
Yeah, but I think in this case, I don't like we can teach them now about data and coding and everything, but I don't know what's in 10 or in 20 years. Maybe we have AIs and we don't need this anymore. I think it's so much more important to teach people about being flexible, about being able and willing to learn, because things develop so fast. And I think if I also look at people and I'm hiring, I mostly like people who I believe are willing to learn, and I don't care so much about what they can do today, but what I can see them doing in the future. And this is something that's a mindset, and it's really hard to teach this, but I think it can be fostered in school. But then it would mean that we focus on so many different things in school instead of teaching subjects for 45 or for 90 minutes and then the next and the next. Like we need a whole different approach when it comes to learning and thinking about the future.
Fully agree. And learning how to learn is one of the top skills in the latest World Economic Forum report, the Future of Jobs report. They put like a top 10 skills list of, for staying employable and getting into a job by 2025, and learning how to learn is in, top 2. So super important to stay agile and to learn through your life. And that's more important than the hard skills that you will learn. I completely agree, Diana. Yeah. Wonderful. Something else, maybe to close this discussion, maybe to have like a last tip, or sharing one last story of hope, or as you wish, but maybe one last word for female founders out there and men founders who are listening to us.
My tip is that if you would like to do something with impact, look at the SDGs and think about what you're most passionate about. And I think education is such an important topic. And if you have something you can bring on the table, just do it and try to help, support, learn on the way. And use the time and the experiences and the knowledge you have to do something better for the world.
Thank you, Diana. Marie-Christina and Larissa, one last.
I think that, the fact that we have open discussion about that is really a first step. People should speak, should help each other, should really, that starts with that. And I think that I was saying, women should dare doing things. It's a big thing of us, self, conscience and, and confidence, and the fact that, women should really dare doing things. And basically, I hope that the more and more, there will be women doing things and women, promoting what they are doing, and the more, it will go deeper into the population. So I think there's a very important, subject that women work together on that and speak a lot about that and give a role model and speak loudly about what they're doing.
Yeah, fully agree. Get yourself out there, be visible. Such an important tip, definitely. Larissa?
Yeah, I think I'm really thankful for platforms like this to always share and learn from each other. And I think if we are not sharing and if we are not collaborating, then we are minimizing our impact. And so I always encourage and recommend, young innovators and female entrepreneurs to do research and to ensure that they understand what it takes to be, a woman in this space. It's an exciting space to be in, but it comes with its challenges. And so don't let these challenges or obstacles deter you from pursuing it. We desperately need alternative options to scale up the work that we are doing. And so we are all learning from each other. And I encourage that we continue to work with each other and do adequate research and take time to really understand your business model and approach while collaborating with others.
Wonderful. Thank you for this ending words. I think it's a lot of hope, a lot of collaboration, and putting yourself out there, making yourself visible, making other female founders or leaders visible. That's something that we can all do. Thank you so much, the three of you, for joining this this webinar. And I just really hope that our listeners will get something out of this, and they can contact us on LinkedIn if they want to share more or discuss more. We're open to the conversation as always. Thank you.